The arena was loud, filled with shouts, laughter, and the sound of metal clashing from earlier matches. Thousands of alien spectators sat in the high stands, their eyes glowing in the dim light. In the center stood Commander Vera, the undefeated champion of the Tveran Guard. Her tall frame was covered in shining silver armor that had never been broken. A long plasma spear rested easily in her hands, its energy edge humming like a living thing. Across from her stood Jake, a human, lean and calm, wearing simple training clothes. In his hands were two short wooden sticks connected by a thin chain. No lights, no plasma edge, no heavy weight, just wood and steel links. The crowd didn't understand. Some pointed and laughed. Others muttered that this fight would be over in seconds. Vera tilted her head, a smirk playing on her lips. "Is this a joke?" she called out, her voice echoing through the arena. "Do humans fight with toys?" Her words made the audience burst into fresh laughter. She twirled her spear in a blur, the energy glow leaving bright trails in the air. "I expected a challenge," she added. "But you brought sticks." Jake didn't answer. His eyes never left hers. He spun the nunchucks slowly, the chain whispering in the air, each movement smooth and controlled. There was no showmanship, no wasted motion, only quiet focus. The alien champion stepped forward, armor plates clinking with each movement. She stopped a few meters away, looking down at him. "I hope you can swing those little toys fast enough before I break your bones," she said, lowering her spear into a ready position. Jake finally spoke, his voice calm. "Speed isn't the problem," he said. "Timing is." The smirk on Vera's face widened. She thought he was arrogant, and she liked crushing arrogance. Around them, the announcer shouted for the match to begin. A deep gong rang out, signaling the start. Vera moved first. She stepped forward in a sudden burst, her spear slicing through the air toward Jake's chest. The crowd leaned forward, ready to see the human fall in the very first second. But the wooden sticks moved. They blurred, intercepting the spear's shaft with a sharp crack. The attack was deflected, the spear thrown off its path. The noise in the arena faded. No one had expected that. Vera narrowed her eyes. The human hadn't even stepped back. His arms were relaxed, his breathing steady. He spun the nunchucks again, not to show off, but like a predator testing its claws before the strike. For the first time, the champion's smirk weakened. Something about the human's stillness, the way he seemed to wait for her, made her grip the spear tighter. The crowd didn't laugh anymore, because somewhere deep inside, everyone felt it. This wasn't going to be the quick, easy victory they thought it would be. Vera's eyes burned with challenge. She took a slow step to the left, spear tip tracing a deadly line through the air. The human didn't move, his gaze fixed on her as if he could read her next motion before it happened. The chain of the nunchucks swung softly, making a faint clink every time it turned. The champion's muscles tensed. Then she lunged. The spear shot forward like a lightning bolt, aiming for his ribs. The crowd gasped. It was one of her fastest thrusts, the same move that had ended dozens of fights in an instant. But Jake's body tilted just enough for the attack to miss by a finger's width. His arms moved in a blur. The nunchuck struck the spear's shaft twice. Crack, crack, redirecting it away from his body. The shock ran up Vera's arms, surprising her with the strength behind those small sticks. Her eyes narrowed. She swung again, this time aiming for his head. Jake ducked low, spun on his heel, and the chain whistled through the air before smacking hard against the base of her spear. The weapon trembled in her grip. The audience went silent for a heartbeat. Then came whispers. He blocked her twice. "Did you see how fast he moved? No one's ever done that." Vera gritted her teeth. She attacked with a wide sweep, trying to knock him off balance. Jake stepped forward instead of back, sliding under the spear's arc. The nunchucks moved like flowing water, spinning, reversing, striking. One hit landed against the edge of her gauntlet, making a sharp metallic clang. The champion's smirk was gone now. She could feel a faint sting in her hand where he'd struck. Her armor was supposed to absorb all impact, yet somehow his strike had gotten through. "You're faster than I thought," she admitted, circling him again. Jake's answer was calm, almost casual. "And you're slower than I expected." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. No one insulted the champion in her own arena. Vera roared and charged, spear aimed straight for his heart. Jake didn't back away. The nunchucks blurred, intercepting the attack with a series of sharp, precise hits. Crack, crack, crack. The sound echoed like gunfire. Sparks flashed where wood met metal, and the spear was forced aside once again. This time, the crowd didn't cheer. They only watched, their eyes wide, as they realized something dangerous. The human wasn't just surviving. He was studying her. And every second that passed, she was giving him exactly what he needed to break her. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Vera's spear glowed brighter as she tightened her grip. She was no longer smiling. Now her eyes were sharp, focused, and dangerous. She moved first, feet pounding against the arena floor. The spear became a streak of light, stabbing and slashing in quick combinations. The attacks were fast, so fast most fighters couldn't even see them coming. But Jake's movements were different. He didn't meet her strength with strength. He flowed around her strikes like water slipping past rocks. The nunchucks spun in tight, controlled arcs, the chain flashing in the light as crack, crack, crack rang out again and again. The crowd leaned forward, trying to follow what was happening. But Jake's hands moved too quickly. The wooden sticks were there one moment, gone the next, appearing only when they struck her armor. At first, the hits were small, a sharp tap against her shoulder plate, a quick strike to the side of her thigh guard. Vera ignored them. Her armor was made from Vartanium steel, forged in the heart of a dying star. Could survive a plasma blast. A pair of wooden sticks was nothing. But then, after the fifth strike, she felt something odd. The joint in her arm plate felt loose. Another hit to her chest guard made a faint ping, like metal bending under pressure. Her eyes widened. She swung her spear in a heavy downward arc, but Jake sidestepped, bringing the nunchucks around in a tight spin before slamming them into the inside of her knee plate. The impact rang out like a drum. She staggered for half a second. The whispers in the stands grew louder. "Is he damaging her armor? That's impossible." Vera growled low in her throat. She attacked faster, her spear spinning so quickly it became a blur. But Jake matched her speed. No, he was faster now. Every dodge flowed into a strike, every spin into another blow against a weak point in her armor. A dent appeared near her shoulder. Another on her forearm. A hairline crack snaked across her chest plate. Her breathing grew heavier. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was the champion. She had crushed warriors from 5 systems. And yet, here she was, fighting a human with sticks and losing ground. Jake's eyes never left hers. His voice was calm, almost quiet, as he spun the nunchucks once more. "Your armor's strong," he said, stepping forward. "But your confidence, that's weaker." The crowd went silent again. Even they knew the fight had shifted. The question now wasn't if Jake could hit her. It was how long before her armor fell apart completely. The crowd's excitement had turned into an uneasy silence. Every eye in the arena followed Jake's movements. His nunchucks spun like extensions of his hands, the chain singing through the air with each rotation. Vera's jaw clenched. She wasn't used to being on the defensive. Her pride as a champion demanded she end this fight now. With a roar, she lunged forward, thrusting her spear in a vicious straight line toward his chest. Jake's body turned sideways at the last moment. The spear shot past him, close enough for him to feel its heat. In that same breath, his right hand came up. The nunchuck slammed into the joint of her shoulder plate with a sharp crack. The sound was different this time. Louder. Final. A piece of silver armor broke free and clattered to the floor. The crowd gasped. Vera stepped back, shock flashing in her eyes. Her armor had never failed before. Not against energy blades. Not against railgun slugs. But now, a part of it lay at Jake's feet. Jake didn't stop. He pressed forward, his movements faster and sharper. A strike to her hip plate, clang. Another to her forearm guard, crack. The nunchucks seemed to know exactly where to hit. Vera tried to counterattack, swinging her spear in a wide arc. Jake ducked under it, his footwork light and precise, before bringing the nunchucks down hard on the back of her knee plate. She staggered again, forced to put her weight on her spear to steady herself. "Stay still," she snarled, her voice more desperate than commanding. Jake's tone was cool, almost cold. "That's the one thing I'll never do." He moved in a whirlwind of strikes, each one aimed at a gap, a joint, a seam. Armor plates began to loosen, some hanging at odd angles. Her movements grew slower, not because she was tired, but because every swing of her spear left another opening for him to exploit. Another shoulder plate fell, then a thigh guard. Pieces of her once proud armor lay scattered across the arena floor. The audience could feel it. The balance of power had shifted completely. The champion was no longer hunting. She was being hunted. Vera's breathing grew heavy. Her arms ached from blocking blows that came too fast to count. Every strike from the nunchucks rang like a warning bell, telling her the end was near. Jake's eyes locked on hers as he spun the weapons one last time in a tight, deadly circle. "You're running out of armor," he said quietly. "And I'm just getting started." The crowd shivered, because everyone knew the next part wouldn't just break her armor. It would break her pride. The arena floor glittered with broken pieces of Vera's armor. Shoulder plates, thigh guards, and fragments of silver lay scattered like fallen trophies. The champion, once a symbol of unshakable strength, now stood breathing hard, her once perfect armor hanging loose and cracked. Jake stepped forward slowly, the nunchucks spinning in a steady rhythm. The sound of the chain cutting through the air was like a warning drumbeat, each turn promising another strike. Vera gripped her spear tighter. Her pride wouldn't let her step back, but her body was slower now. Each movement was heavier, her balance uneven from the damage to her knee plate. She attacked again, a desperate sweep aimed at forcing him back. Jake leaned away just enough, letting the spear pass harmlessly, then stepped in. The nunchucks snapped forward, hitting the side of her chest plate with a crack so sharp it echoed. The plate split in two. Half fell to the ground. Gasps filled the arena. Jake didn't give her a second to recover. Another hit to her forearm guard, it shattered. A quick turn and strike to her side. The armor split, the straps giving way. Every blow was clean, precise, and aimed at the weak spots only he seemed to see. Vera's breathing was ragged now. She could feel the air on her skin through the gaps in her armor. Her hands trembled slightly around the spear shaft. "You fight well," Jake said as he circled her, his voice calm. "But you've been hiding behind that armor for too long." His words burned more than his strikes. She snarled and charged, but he sidestepped again, delivering 3 rapid hits in the time it took her to turn. Crack, crack, crack. Her back plate loosened and fell. Then the rest followed, the final straps snapping as her armor dropped piece by piece, hitting the arena floor with heavy thuds. Now she stood in only the underlayer of her suit, dark fabric clinging to her skin. The proud, shining warrior was gone, replaced by someone exposed, vulnerable, and breathing hard to keep standing. The crowd wasn't laughing anymore. They were silent, caught between shock and awe. Some couldn't believe what they were seeing. Others couldn't take their eyes off the human who had just dismantled the undefeated champion without a single drop of blood. Jake lowered his nunchucks slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. "It's over," he said quietly. But Vera's pride was not ready to hear those words. Not yet. The cold air of the arena brushed against Vera's skin where her armor used to be. She could feel every gaze on her, thousands of eyes watching, judging, whispering. Her chest rose and fell in heavy breaths. Her spear, once a proud weapon, now felt heavy in her hands. Jake stood a few steps away, the nunchucks resting lightly against his leg. He wasn't breathing hard. There was no sweat on his brow. His eyes were steady, calm, like he had been in control since the first strike. Vera adjusted her grip on the spear, trying to hide the tremor in her hands. She told herself she could still fight, that she still had speed and skill. But deep down, She knew the truth, he had already won. The announcer hesitated, unsure whether to call the match. The crowd remained silent, as if the whole arena was holding its breath. Jake took a slow step forward. The chain of his nunchucks swayed with a faint clink. "You can keep fighting," he said, his voice even. "But it will only end the same way." Vera's jaw tightened. "I am the champion," she replied, her voice low but sharp. "I don't surrender." Jake's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then I'll make this quick." Before she could react, he moved. The nunchuck spun once, twice, and then crack. They struck the shaft of her spear, knocking it from her hands. The weapon clattered across the floor. In the same motion, Jake stepped inside her guard and stopped with the chain wrapped lightly around her arm, holding it in place. He didn't pull. He didn't hurt her. He just stood there, close enough for her to see the calm in his eyes. The silence in the arena was crushing. Vera looked down at her empty hands, then at the scattered pieces of her armor. Her pride told her to keep resisting, but something inside her shifted. This was not a humiliating loss. It was a lesson, and she was staring at the teacher. Slowly, she lowered her head. "You've bested me," she said quietly, the words tasting bitter but true. The crowd erupted, not in mockery, but in thunderous applause. The human had done the impossible, and even the champion could not deny it. Jake released her arm and stepped back. "It's not about the weapon," he said, turning to leave. "It's about the one who wields it." Vera stood in the center of the arena, weaponless, armorless, but strangely lighter. Because in defeat, she had found something she never expected: respect. The sound of applause still echoed through the arena as Jake walked toward the exit. His steps were calm, his posture relaxed, as if dismantling the undefeated champion had been nothing more than another day of training. Behind him, Vera stood still, her hands empty, her breath slowly returning to normal. She had never known this feeling, not just the sting of defeat, but the sharp clarity that came with it. For years, she had crushed every challenger, her skill and armor making her untouchable. Yet today, a human with nothing but wooden sticks had shown her something far more dangerous than raw strength mastery. The crowd's cheers softened into murmurs as they watched her. Some expected her to leave in shame. Others thought she might challenge him again. But instead, she stepped forward. "Human," her voice called, strong but without the arrogance from before. Jake stopped and looked over his shoulder. Vera walked toward him, the loose fabric of her underlayer brushing against her legs where her armor used to be. She stopped a few steps away and lowered her head slightly, not in defeat, but in respect. "You took apart my armor," she said. "But more than that, you broke my pride." Jake's expression didn't change. "That wasn't my goal." "Then what was?" she asked. "To show you," he replied, "that skill will always outlast strength, and patience will always outlast rage." Vera studied him for a moment. The crowd was silent again, hanging on every word. Finally, she took a slow breath. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me to fight like that." A small smile touched Jake's lips. "Only if you're ready to train without the armor." The champion gave a short nod. "I am." Without another word, Jake turned and began walking again. This time, Vera followed. The crowd erupted once more, not for a winner and loser, but for the beginning of something new, a warrior's bond forged in battle. And in the galaxy's history, that day would be remembered not for the moment a human defeated a champion, but for the moment a champion chose to learn from a human.